Hello and a warm welcome to yet another edition of Procurement Shorts. Today we're looking at some key procurement services and one commodity in particular that's been in the news surrounding all of the ebbs and flows of the global supply chain. Let's take a look. Europe's energy crisis is impacting its glass-making industry. According to reports, the shortfall in Russian gas supplies through the Nord pipeline has resulted in production cuts at glass-making units across the EU. In Murano, glassmakers have stopped producing high-value products as the supply chain is faced with 9-fold price hikes this year. Companies have begun shutting down factories for 5 to 6 weeks too, as energy inflows taper off. There are indications that procurement will be hit by these interruptions. The beverage industry is faced with a 90% increase in raw material prices and potential shortages. German beer maker Veltins Brewery has stockpiled 50 million glass bottles to get around a supply shortfall. The UK's Milk and More is trying to increase the lifespan of its glass bottles as prices increase. The company plans to procure 500,000 fewer bottles, add protective coatings to existing bottles, and reuse them 30 times instead of the present day count of 25. Procurement pressures have also been felt by the automobile and smartphone sector. Volkswagen, for one, is looking at suppliers outside of Europe not affected by the crisis to supply its windshields. The good news is that glass factories are looking at oil or diesel as alternatives. Ohio-based OI Glass, with 34 EU factories, has converted 20% of its capacities to be powered by diesel and hopes to have half of them powered by oil by the year end. Should this happen across the continent, the supply chain could see some restoration despite present-day instability. Ocean carriers around the globe have begun blanking sailings in bulk, citing congestion at US and Canadian ports. And data indicates the trend isn't changing. As things stand, the Port of Savannah has about 39 vessels in anchor, while Houston has about 22 ships in queue. This has compelled carriers like MSC and Seco Logistics and Worldwide to make drastic modifications to shipping schedules. The situation could get complicated as labor strikes at the Felixstowe port in England, already having caused $4.7 billion in losses to the global supply chain, could draw to a close and lead to a backlog. On the price front, freight rates from China to the US West Coast are down 6% to about $6,759, according to Freightos, while China to the East Coast is down 3% to just north of $9,000. However, Europe, North America, and China-Europe freight rates have increased thanks to labor issues in Felixstowe and Germany. The impact of the logjam holds some positives for the warehousing space in the US, with costs increasing thick and fast on the East Coast. According to Warehouse Quote, warehousing space requirements here have gone up by 12 to 15% thanks to more ships casting anchor, while costs towards securing extra space alone have been up by 8% this year. The US Northeast could be facing an acute shortage of diesel and heating oil. According to the Department of Energy, supplies in New England are the worst hit, at about 63% below the 5-year average. Meanwhile, from Maryland to New York, supplies are about 58% the 5-year average. And while gasoline inventories are relatively higher, they're still at lowest levels in nearly a decade along the entire East Coast. But there's more bad news ahead. The Weather Department's Atlantic hurricane warning could further disrupt supplies from Gulf refineries, which supply downstream oil products to the region. This comes even as Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm has urged oil companies like Valero, ExxonMobil, and Chevron to not increase exports and build a solid domestic inventory for the hurricane season. She said, and I quote, "Given the historic level of U.S. refined product exports, I urge you to focus in the near term on building inventories in the United States rather than selling down current stocks and further increasing exports," end quote. The appeal comes on the back of gasoline hitting a record high of $5 a gallon, spurring a 40-year high in American inflation. Any shortage in diesel or oil in the US will gravely impact construction and real estate, which are among the top 10 industries in the region from an employment perspective. However, if the US does cut down on exports, some semblance of balance is expected. That's all the time that we have. Thank you so much for watching, and do log in to check out BureauLive.ai to keep pace with all that's happening in this space. For now, it's goodbye from us.